The artificial intelligence boom is growing now in the healthcare industry. Companies like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are all looking to merge healthcare with AI, starting with the summarization of doctor visits along with imaging files and other things. I was saying managing files, but also imaging files. Here to break down what this all means for healthcare, CNBC contributor and former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He also serves on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so in the AI universe, what do you think the biggest opportunity is, but also let's go biggest challenge?
Well, look, right now you see a lot of organized machine learning, looking at data sets for things like radiology, what you mentioned, pathology, evaluating slides, also in cardiology, looking at EKGs. That's been under development for a while, and there's a number of approved modalities for doing that. So Google, for example, has something that can look in the back of the eye, images of the eye, and diagnose diabetic retinopathy. There's 2 approved platforms for doing that by a company called IART and another one called IDX. So organized machine learning, looking at controlled historical data sets based on algorithms to make diagnoses, has been around for a while. The real sort of big opportunity is to use large language models that can do natural language processing to actually do patient interactions. The technology is there to do that right now.
Oh my gosh, when I call the bank and you have to go through the crazy codes to get
There's
through.
regulatory impediments.
Right. The question
You've gotta be kidding me.
But what I was going to ask you, though, about this is, we're still not at a point where a lot of the large language models can do things that I would describe as mission critical. They're not good with math. They still hallucinate. How far away do you think we are from real interaction? There are, by the way, Inflection and a couple of others are working on programs right now that are, you instead of having a psychiatrist, you would actually just interact with. And by the way, there are studies, Becky's laughing, there are studies that show that the computer is more empathetic than a human. Yeah, that actually people enjoy the experience more of actually interacting with an AI, if you will, than with another human being.
It's
Doctor.
got to be different than these things I talk to.
They're doing talk that. One of the challenges is there's not a lot of large clinical data sets to train these models on, and the models that exist have been trained on sort of a small number of parameters relative to like ChatGPT, some of the large language models that we're interfacing with. They're already being rolled out into telemedicine portals. So if you look at like Cure AI or K-Health, and you go on there, the first 5 or 6 or 7 questions you get asked will be through an AI interface in many cases, and then it will default to a doctor and it will provide structured information to the physician. Right. So the initial intake will have been done by an AI chatbot. Making that transition to having it fully automated and allowing the AI to handle the interaction soup to nuts, that's a real regulatory challenge. And I think what we're going to do is look at some simple interactions. Those might be the first to get approved, like medicine refills and some simple chief complaints like, pain on urination or...
Okay, so the dream of all of this, though, is to get more accurate readings in all of these issues and to do it more cheaply. And so my question, I imagine they will do the readings potentially better than a human eventually.
Yeah, that
the question is, what's going to happen to the cost? Is it really going to, is this the thing that's going to, I mean, we're all waiting for some magical thing to come down from the heavens and change the cost of healthcare.
Yeah, look, the reason why costs in healthcare don't respond to productivity inputs is at the end of the day, you need a physician or a provider to have an interaction with the patient. So this is sort of Baumel's, the economist's theory of disease. In industries that are labor intensive, you can't bring down costs with technology inputs. Here, the technology can substitute for the labor input. And as you move towards capitation, more practices are going to adopt these tools because they're not being paid on their physical labor. Right now, we pay on physical labor in medicine through Medicare. When you're capitated, you want to withdraw the physical labor if you can and substitute the technology for the interaction.
I'll say 2 things. First of all, I always want a doctor to be the interface. I'm thrilled at the idea of the doctor being smarter because it's got AI helping him or her in the background, reading the charts, reading the scans, the x-rays, any of those things. I think that's great. Will there be a time, though, where this kind of adds to the differentiation between good healthcare and bad healthcare? Those who get great healthcare, those who don't, because it seems to me like this is going to be rolled out first in the really high-end areas, in more densely packed urban areas. It's not going to make its way out to the other places. And if I've got a doctor who's smarter because you're getting helped by AI, that means that the haves and have-nots maybe get further.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the bifurcation is going to be on sort of premium practices versus people who are getting care in more austere environments. So though you will maybe see some adoption based on those parameters, I think it's going to be people who look for convenience, who want a quicker interaction. So, do you feel comfortable that you log on to a telemedicine portal and you're interacting with an AI chatbot for the first, 5 minutes of the interaction, and it defaults to the physician, and the physician now has structured information from your interaction with the chatbot?
I guess it's just that any way I use this, whether that be calling CVS to ask about my prescription and having to go through all the stupid prompts that it gives me first, and in the end I always have to say, speak to the pharmacist because they screw something up on it. Yesterday, talking to the bank, eventually had to say, speak to a customer service representative because they don't translate any of that. And all the stuff they spent 15 minutes asking me, they don't see on the other end anyway. So the stuff that we already use, we're really bad at.
Yeah, I think it's not being used well in a lot of settings, and I don't know what the engine is behind those interactions. But if you look at something like Cure AI or some of these startups that are interfacing or building in the natural language processing up front, you do have a little bit more of a seamless interaction. These tools have gotten more intelligent. And look, they're going to continue to expand as we get more processing power, as really the bottleneck has been the clinical data sets to train these tools. Right now, they're very limited. So you're going to see, I think, build out.
Okay, so give us just a timeline. What do you think the true promise of this is? Is this like automated cars? We said it was, back in 2016, and here we are in 2023. Well, are we talking about next year? Are we talking about 2030?
Well, look, the question is the regulation, and I think for very simple interactions, people are going to need to seek approval around discrete chief complaints that patients might present with and try to carve off simple interactions. But if you look at medicine generally, 8% of all calls to a primary care physician are around musculoskeletal pain. 6% are URI symptoms, a lot of medicine refills. And so you can carve off those discrete chief complaints and try to get regulatory approval around those to have the AI tool manage the interaction and default in select circumstances when it seems more complicated.
Saves the healthcare worker
within the next
time
5 years.